Enough is enough. Emmanuel's voice must stop this evil. We cannot stand by and let another child vanish into silence. This is not just a story. This is a cry for justice, a cry for truth. The truth is staring us in the face. Emmanuel was said to have gone missing in August, but the placards already called him 7 months old. That means they were printed in July, when Emmanuel was still alive. Or at least, that's what they wanted us to believe. Think about it. If this was an abduction at the football field, why did no one see him there? No mother carrying a baby, no stranger snatching him, nothing. That's because Emmanuel was already gone before the world was even told to look for him. And now, this Thursday, his parents will walk into court. But Emmanuel cannot walk in there. He cannot speak for himself. That means it is up to you to raise our voices, to keep the pressure on, to demand that the truth be heard. Don't scroll past this. Subscribe right now. Comment your thoughts and join this community, because silence only protects the guilty. Every single one of us has a role to play in making sure this baby's voice is not erased. The official claim was that Emmanuel disappeared at a football event. His mother said he was right there with her, and that in the middle of all the noise, all the people, he was suddenly gone. But here's the problem. Stories like this don't just fall apart, they shatter under the smallest bit of truth. Football events are crowded. Parents with kids, players on the field, families with phones recording every moment. In a place like that, if a baby had really been carried in by his mother, someone would have noticed. Someone would have seen her holding him. And if a stranger had dared to take a baby in front of a crowd, it would have caused panic, screaming, chaos. But none of that happened. Not a single photo, not a single witness, not a single cry of alarm. There was no Emmanuel at that football game. That day was not a kidnapping, it was a story, a cover. And when you line this up with everything else, the missing baby items from the house, the neighbors quietly admitting they hadn't seen Emmanuel in weeks, and the father's history of violence toward children, it becomes clear the disappearance was staged. Emmanuel didn't vanish in public, he was already gone in private. This so-called football event was never about finding Emmanuel. It was about hiding the fact that, by then, there was no Emmanuel to be found.
Here's the detail that most people missed. The placards. Emmanuel was said to have gone missing in August, yet the placards printed for his disappearance described him as 7 months old. The problem? Emmanuel would not have turned 7 months until a full week later. That means those placards were not made after his disappearance. They were prepared before. They were printed while Emmanuel was still alive in July, or worse, printed after he was already gone and no one cared enough to change the details. This single mistake tells us the truth. Emmanuel did not vanish in August. His story was already over in July. And now, with Thursday's court appearance approaching, this is the moment we must raise our voices. We must speak for a baby who cannot speak for himself. If we stay silent, Emmanuel's life is reduced to nothing more than a misprinted placard. It is not enough to watch. It is not enough to whisper. This is the time to shout for Emmanuel Haro, to demand answers, to demand justice, to demand truth. Because if we let this slip by, Emmanuel is erased forever.
When we look at Emmanuel's disappearance, one name keeps circling back: his father, Haro. On the surface, he was absent on the day Emmanuel was declared missing, but dig into his past and you uncover something darker: allegations of child abuse that stain his history. This isn't speculation, it's a pattern. A man capable of hurting children once is a man capable of hurting them again. And on the very day Emmanuel was said to vanish, Jake was nowhere near the football field.
Instead, he was in the home, abusing Emmanuel's 2-year-old sibling. So what does that tell us? While the public was told to picture Emmanuel being snatched away in a crowded event, the reality may have been far worse. Behind closed doors, in the silence of that house, Emmanuel's fate was sealed. And that is why your voice matters. Emmanuel cannot defend himself, and no child deserves to be forgotten. As Thursday's court appearance draws near, we must not let his story be buried under lies. Speak his name, demand the truth, because silence is what allowed this tragedy to happen, and silence now will only protect those who hurt him. There's one thing investigators quietly noticed, but most people missed. When they looked around Emmanuel's home, something was off. The space where a baby should have left fingerprints of life was empty. No bottles lined up, no crib set in place, no little clothes folded away. It was as if Emmanuel never lived there at all. And here's the chilling part. Parents of a missing child cling to hope. They hold on to the baby's blanket. They keep the crib untouched. They leave toys exactly where they were. Those little items are symbols of love, of waiting, of faith that their child will come home. But in Emmanuel's case, everything was gone. Why erase a baby's existence unless there was something to hide? Why wipe away every trace of Emmanuel unless the truth was darker than the story being told? It almost feels like Emmanuel was erased twice, once in reality and then again from memory. And that is why this Thursday matters. This court appearance is not just another hearing. It is Emmanuel's only voice. He cannot stand up for himself. He cannot tell the judge what happened. But we can. You can. We must raise our voices louder than their silence, louder than their cover-up. Because if we stay quiet, then Emmanuel will be forgotten. But if we speak, if we push, if we demand truth, then his name will be remembered. And maybe, just maybe, justice will finally begin. When a baby lives in a home, the neighborhood knows. They hear the midnight cries, they see the stroller, they notice the little signs of life. But neighbors around Emmanuel's family said something chilling. It had been a long time since they last saw him. Now, pause there. His mother claimed he vanished at a crowded football event. But let's be real, if a baby had truly been snatched that day, someone would have seen it. A mother with a child in her arms, a kidnapper running off, a single witness. But there was nothing, absolute silence. And then comes the detail that exposes even more cracks in their story, the placards. They held up signs that read 1 month old, but Emmanuel was already just 7 days shy of turning 2 months. Why the mistake? Or was it really a mistake at all? Those placards were likely printed weeks earlier, back in July, ready for a disappearance that hadn't yet been staged. That alone suggests Emmanuel was long gone before the world was told to look for him. The football game was never about a real kidnapping. It was a distraction, a smokescreen, a cover-up designed to erase the truth. And family silence wasn't enough. They needed the neighbors silent too. They needed us silent. But we won't be. Because this Thursday, when the court doors open, Emmanuel needs voices louder than theirs. He cannot speak, but we can. He cannot fight, but we must. Let the judge, the lawyers, the world hear it. We will not let Emmanuel be erased. Raise your voices, share his story, demand answers. Emmanuel deserves justice, and only we can fight for it. And while the mother staged the scene at that football event, one face was missing. Haro, the father, the man who should have been standing beside his family in their moment of crisis, was nowhere to be found. Instead, reports point to something far more disturbing. While his baby was supposedly being kidnapped, Jake was in that same house, allegedly abusing Emmanuel's 2-year-old sibling. Imagine that for a moment. While the world was told to search for Emmanuel, another child was suffering under the same roof. And Jake's past isn't clean. This isn't the first time whispers of child abuse trailed him. This isn't the first time suspicion found its way to his doorstep. Add that to the fact that investigators discovered illegal weapons in his possession, and you have to ask, what was he preparing for? What was he hiding? If a man can harm one child, what stops him from harming another? If he can hold illegal weapons, what else is he capable of? And here's the darkest thought of all. If Emmanuel wasn't killed, could he have been trafficked, sold, passed along in those lost weeks before the public ever knew to look for him? Because every day of delay was a gift to whoever wanted Emmanuel gone. Every day made the trail colder, the truth harder to trace. This is why Thursday matters. This is why silence is not an option. Emmanuel needs a jury of millions, not just in the court, but across the world. Every voice raised is pressure. Every question asked is accountability. Every share of his story is one more crack in the wall they've tried to build around the truth. Enough of the lies. Enough of the silence. A baby does not just vanish into thin air. A mother does not stage a football game. A father does not hide in the shadows while children suffer in his house. Emmanuel Haro was not lost. He was erased. Erased from his own family, erased from the timeline, erased from the truth. And if we stay silent, if we scroll past, if we treat this like just another story, then we are letting them bury him twice. This Thursday is not just a court date. It is Emmanuel's only chance for justice. He cannot walk into that courtroom. He cannot raise his voice. But you can. We can. We must. So shout louder than the parents who lied. Shout louder than the silence of the neighbors. Shout louder than the darkness that swallowed Emmanuel. Raise your voices. Flood the world with his name. And if you're watching this right now, ask yourself, what will you say when justice is denied because not enough people cared? Will you be able to live with that? Or will you say, I stood up for Emmanuel when he had no one else? Subscribe, not just for another video. Subscribe because we are building a community that refuses to let children be erased. Because if we don't fight for Emmanuel, who will?